Chair, members of the board. So much has happened since my last report. We are returning to school. Full and very eventful summer, which included summer school, Pathways Academy, band camp, Summer Quest, Regionals Governor's School, our third year of offering the Spark Camp with over 150 students participating once again. Spark offered academic, social, creative, and fun activities for students every weekday all summer long. It was a huge collaborative effort between RCPS and Headwaters, and each agency leveraged resources to raise the nearly $200,000 it takes in order to make this program a reality for the families of Rappahannock. Surveys are out now, and all who were involved with the Spark program are encouraged to provide feedback as we plan for next year's Spark Camp, and planning is already underway. Thank you all so much for helping support and advocate for this effort. It continues to be such an essential program for many of our working families in our community. We are gearing up to start school next week. Much has been done in welcoming our new teachers and staff to Rappahannock schools. New teachers, as is customary, underwent an orientation to acclimate them to RCPS, as well as provide essential training to begin the year. They spent time with mentors who introduced them to essential knowledge about RCPS and even received a special bus ride from a surprise bus driver to their luncheon on the first day. All of our teachers and staff will return this Wednesday for convocation at RCHS, followed by a very busy back-to-school week schedule with essential staff development, much focused on providing a supportive and engaging learning environment where all students, staff, and families belong. Meet the Teacher Night and Back to School Bash is Monday, August 10th from 1 to 4 and 5 to 7. Please feel free to stop in and say hello to our teachers and parents, as well as see some of the continued improvements and updates in our facilities. We know you will be pleased, especially with that stunning new roof, which has been completed under budget. The fortitude of which was very much tested the past couple of weeks with the deluge of rain, but I am happy to report not a leak to be found, even today when we walk through, so we're very excited. We will welcome students back with open hearts, minds, and arms on August 12th for the first day of school. Finally, we have worked collaboratively with our county administration colleagues on the development of a new landing page, rappahannockschools.us/ballot, where we can load information and resources about this new 1% sales and use tax referendum that will be up for the voters of our county to decide this November. The page houses factual information regarding the potential revenue stream and provides source documents so that voters can make the most informed decision possible about deciding how to address school capital needs over the coming years. This is a great next step in the ongoing discourse in this community about looking at all potential revenue, especially when maintaining our current facilities. It is also a good time to look back at the incredible work that's been done over the last 2 years to develop a strong joint county school capital improvement plan with supporting assessments and documentation with all of the aligned costs. I look very much forward to continuing this discussion this year. As always, thank you for your continued support of our schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a couple of questions, and I do apologize for not giving you a heads up because you might not know these off of the top of your head. Okay. And if you don't, if you would just work to get that information to me, I would appreciate it. So regarding your landing page, a couple of questions I've already had, is about the who, and I do know it's nicely done. I've spent some time on there, and lots of the questions are answered. But specifically, I have been asked several times, does this, would the sales tax apply to the town of Washington? Mm-hmm. So I want clarity around that. Also, I've been asked, is there a sunset on this? So I don't know if that's your world or Miss Jules' world. I would like that clarified. And let's see, those were my only questions about your landing page, and then I have a few others about other topics. So.
No, that's awesome. And as the questions come into you about the landing page, please let us know, because we're combining all of the information together there, and we can add FAQs as they pop up, or if there's additional information or source documents. There is a lot coming out from the state as well. The Coalition of Small Rural Schools is also contracting with Donovan Group, which is a national school communication firm, and that's being offered at no cost to divisions that are part of COSARS, which is great. So we'll see what some of their material is too about communication around this topic. But as those questions come up, we will definitely add to the the page, but at least now we have a spot to put everything.
Yeah, excellent. I couldn't read my writing. My other question was, it's broken out here. It answers questions, kind of an average store receipt and the average real estate tax bill. But I could not find, if it's on here, what would it look like if we had to borrow this money? I couldn't find that and how that would be different, how that would shake out for the county. But I really appreciated how it will be used, because I do think it's important that everyone understand this is not about operational costs, it is about the capital improvements. So those were all of my questions about that. My other questions, and again, you might not know this off the top of your head. I'm curious with the new teachers coming in. First, how many returning teachers do you have?
How many?
Who left and then came back?
I can get you our firm turnover rates. We just were asked about that, but we're in the 80% with retention rate this year, which is better. I want to be much higher than that, but that's better.
Yeah, and I asked because I am aware of at least 2 of the 19 who left last year who have returned.
Yes.
So, I was just curious if that number had increased.
We have three former teachers who have returned to us, and then we have another person who's coming on in an interim capacity that we have not announced yet, but we're pretty excited about. So.
Okay, great. And then how many of our school teachers are on provisional licenses? And do you know how that looks different this year as compared to maybe 2 years ago?
That's one I'll have to pull from HR records to look at where they're broken down, but we are, I know, in a much better place than we have been ever, I think, at this point with our licensed staff being onboarded. The iTeach program has been greatly helpful from the state. That helps your career switchers or those with a bachelor's that want to obtain teaching certification to do so through that platform and a path to licensure that's a little more attainable. So that's been very helpful, but I can pull those numbers. We can make that one of our questions if you'd like to show, but we have a lot fewer now that are approaching provisional or fully, more that are fully licensed than we had been.
And then my last question, I know that we've heard this a lot. This is a concern, a theme. We've heard a lot from constituents over the last 2 years. And then, I just experienced something last week that was kind of not an aha moment for me because I've been aware, but just kind of framed up this theme differently. I'm curious if you know how many out-of-county students we have this year. And the reason I ask is I understand the value of butts and seats. I understand that. I would, that's a good question to always ask and remind everyone how much money we get from an out-of-county student. However, I also think those out-of-county students, it's very important to me that the out-of-county students and the out-of-county parents recognize the value they are then getting in return. And sometimes, when things are free, they're not appreciated. So I do want to keep a close eye on that. And one of the reasons, what happened to me last week that really kind of pulled that in focus was my son had his college orientation. So he met, he spent the night and he met all kinds of people that he's going to be interacting with. And they ranged from, 5A schools, and then he, out of his group, was the one that came from the smallest school. And even Mason, in that moment, he came home and he said, you know what, we did this, 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 and this. And he said, I would never have played basketball if I had been at a different larger school. I would never have been able to go. He says, I would never have made it to state if I'd been in this 5A school. Like,
I don't know if he's really good though. So.
But he recognized the opportunity that he was afforded by not only his school, but the taxpayers of Rappahannock County. So I just want to pay close attention to that number. And, I need for those parents to recognize the value as well.
And I think they are, and that has been an ongoing conversation. In fact, 2 board meetings ago for the school board meeting, there's an agenda item that breaks down each of our out-of-county students, what category that they're approved under, whether they're a county employee or they pay taxes but don't live in the county, if it's decile rule. So it has all of those categories, so you can really see. We do have a very small number that gets through on either subbing or volunteering in the community, and that has to be tracked pretty meticulously, and it has been. So I think people have attested to that already, who are calling up and saying, hey, I got this big tuition bill. Yep, you will if you don't need it. So that has been happening. And also the board has been discussing narrowing it down now that we have gotten to a number that seems to be our sustainable plateau in that area, that what does that look like then for administrative costs? Are there any additional administrative costs over the fixed cost burden that this is mitigating for us? And if so, that would then be charged at the next school year when those applications come due. So they have already been directing staff to look at that and see if there's an administrative cost fee per application per student that would be going to enact for the next year.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I had today.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. A couple of them have already been answered. Good questions, Donna. Thank you for that. Enrollment, and I know you've kept us up to speed on the enrollment. Can you remind me versus last year or compared to last year where we're at this year? I know we had a little bit of a decline. We had a little bit of an increase, I think.
Yeah, we're staying pretty stable right between our ADM is looking at about 745, which is pretty good. I mean, we were at 728 at one point a few years ago, so looking pretty steady there. Our overall actual enrollment in classes preschool through 12 was looking at 776 students. So that's always much higher than actual ADM, and we go through that every year on why that is.
So as you're preparing for your next year's budget, and you may not know this, but typically when we're preparing for our budgets, we have things that come out of left field. Do you have any, can you give us any insight on things that might be coming down the pike so we're not surprised? I'm talking major expenditures. You know, the roof wasn't a surprise, although it was a surprise it took this long to replace the damn thing. That is great there. So any surprises that you?
I sure hope not. We are trying to get ahead of as many things as we can. The biggie that we're watching this year that, as you know, you've been involved in this conversation, is about our Panther Care program, using an HRA high deductible plan and moving employees to that. So we're doing a lot of tracking on that system to make sure that our employees are well taken care of and that the system works the way it's supposed to and holds our funds here rather than going off to the insurance companies, and can talk at length about why that is important and what that's going to do for employees. But it's going to be a new rollout. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of growing pains, but hopefully it'll serve the needs of our staff the way it's supposed to.
Good. One last question. Of course, the roof project, you indicated that it was under budget. How much under budget?
Oh, I'd have to ask Robin. It wasn't by a whole lot, but enough where she was happy that it didn't go the opposite way.
Well, we're always happy about that. Sometimes under budget means a lot of things, and we're always looking for dollars, and I know you are too. It'd be nice to know that. Is it insignificant? Is it significant? I would say probably insignificant with that project, but
we do expect the boiler line project. It was a $60-some-odd thousand project. Looks like it might be a little over budget, but hopefully less. We believe less than the roof was under budget.
thank you.
That's what we hope.
We keep hoping.
Yes.
I know that you had a successful Spark Camp, but how many students were in it?
About 150 with counselors and students served, yes.
Okay, so how many counselors, do you know?
40-ish, 40-something.
So around 100
Campers.
having a great time, and then
Yes.
the 40 or 50 trying to reel them in.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And the back-to-school event that you've got coming up, it wasn't clear to me whether that was at the high school or the elementary school.
Both schools. The back-to-school bash is at the elementary school where they'll have a lot of different vendors. They're doing haircuts and face painting. It's a bigger, elementary style. And then at the high school, they're having the back-to-school night as they traditionally would, only that's going to be more around the content, course content and syllabus and all of those things, so a little different. Still will be fun, I'm sure.
How many seniors?
Oh, gosh, I'd have to pull the numbers, but
I know it won't be a special of the year for some of you guys, but. All right,
I
anything else?
just make
Oh,
one comment. I don't have anything to ask other than what's been asked, but I, looking through your website, I appreciate you for putting this together. I think one of the most important quotes on here is, the vote is not about whether the school facilities undergo improvements, it's about how we pay for them. And I hope we can reinforce that, all of us, in the community. We're probably gonna have the back and forth on operating budgets.
of course,
You know,
yeah.
we just started it, get us ready.
I'm used to that.
But we don't want that to cause a delay in taking care of the facilities. And I think that's been our issue in the past, and we have a wonderful 5-year plan. We're gonna spend the money, the question is, we need to spend the money to keep the schools up. The question is, how do we fund it? And this 1% tax would give us options rather than taxing real estate. So I hope we can get that message out to the community. Nobody likes taxes, but hopefully we can understand, the community can understand that. So I think this does a good job of explaining that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck this year.
Thank you.
I just want to note real quick, the 3 questions you have, I think, are answered on the website. So sales tax does apply within the town to everything, all sales, well, applicable sales.
Okay,
The sunset date is included, it's about 20 years, I think it's 2046.
July 5th, 2046.
And then how much would the bonding cost? That's kind of where the 6 cents backs around from. So to get the same revenue per year as you would get from the sales tax penny, it would take about 6 cents of real estate, and then you could bond from that if you wanted to, or you could do cash flowing as was envisioned by this body earlier. So there are some questions or answers further down to talk about how much extra it would cost if you did use bonding, because then you're paying interest.
okay, I missed that, the further down then.
And we'll
Thank
make
you.
sure we get that
Yeah,
highlighted.
Yeah, there's about $3 million in interest costs for the about $6 million, and I know that seems improbable, but that's really what it is, for the $6 million in projects that are in this 5-year plan. But over that 20 years, you're gonna have multiple 5-year plans.
and tell me, where is the sunset date?
It is listed down there.
It's in the resolution, it's in the court order, and then someplace on there, it is also.
Oh, I see it. Okay,
Dave
great.
just brought it up. Yep,
Yep.
awesome. Thank you. All right, next, Mr. Kerr, if you will help me, we've got several employees to recognize today.
Yeah, it's like me from Mark.
I certainly hope so.
I was going to increase in order. Patrick joined the county since I've been here, which seems crazy. Patrick is a victim witness advocate within Humboldt's attorney's office. Does a great job.
Thank you very much.
Mary Graham actually started as an employee in the Commissioner of Revenue's office and then successfully ran as another Commissioner of Revenue. So congratulations, Mary, for 10 years. Captain Jones, 10 years as well. So these two both predate me, so I don't know all the good things they did before I got here. But, I remember Jim stopping into our office, being a great liaison with the Sheriff's Office, of course, investigator with the Sheriff's Office. Thank you. And former Sheriff, Cody Dodson, 15 years, now Major Chief Deputy Cody Dodson. I enjoyed a tour of the high school one time, and Cody's picture was up on the shop wall with his shop class. And I don't think Amanda Weekly is here. Amanda, library director, has been here for 15 years. And I don't believe Lisa Dodson was able to be here, but Lisa's been with the county for 20 years. Congratulations.
All right. Go into the public comment period. Mr. Curry, do the timer for me, please.
VDOT quarterly update.
Oh, did I miss? I missed you. Very sorry. VDOT has a presentation for us as well.
Thank you, Chairman Donahue and board members. Appreciate y'all letting me be here today to update you on what's going on with VDOT. Of course, the summer season is in full swing with, we're working on a rural rustic project. Resurfacing, warm weather and intermittent storms are causing, some extra activities. Our local maintenance crews have been engaged in routine maintenance activities such as mowing, gravel road maintenance, pothole patching, vegetative debris removal, emergency call-outs, and trash and debris removal throughout the county. I got a number of items here. I'm just going to pick them off one by one. I met recently with Supervisor Comer regarding the speed limit on 645 Hackley's Mill Road. We had received a request from the sheriff and as well as Supervisor Comer regarding the speed limit. We did a study, and the study concluded that the 55-mile-an-hour unposted speed limit should be lowered to 50, and also recommended some curb warning signs. Well, Supervisor Comer expressed some concerns that that speed limit may not be low enough. So I met with Supervisor Comer on site. We looked at it, and we discussed it and offered to restudy the speed limit in the spring. Let's see what if the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit had any impact on the motorists, their driving habits, and see if that changed anything. We'd revisit it, see what the new study said, and then go from there. So we'll try to get that study done after the winter season when spring comes back and things get somewhat back to normal. Also received requests from a local property owner through Supervisor Donahue to review the need for guardrail extension adjacent to their property on Route 522 near Chester Gap. My assistant, Ben Davison, reviewed this request and determined that extension was not warranted by the conditions. This was communicated to the property owner, and an on-site meeting has been requested, and the meeting date is pending at this point, but that will happen. Construction season, as I said earlier, is underway. We've already finished our part in Rappahannock County. We surface treated 6 miles of roadway this year, and we also have resurfaced 13.30 miles of road with hot mix asphalt. And those roads were Route 231 and a section of Route 211. So those are complete. Regarding Route 231, we had a local resident on 231 voice concerns about the noise on 231 related to the milled-in centerline rumble strips. After an in-person meeting and some internal discussion, VDOT agreed to pursue a project to replace the installed rumble strip with sinusoidal or mumble strips, which are have a lower noise level. Studies have shown that mumble strips are much quieter than the standard rumble strips. No date has been set for the replacement project, but it will happen. We have a project scheduled to replace the bridge deck on 618 Holland Road, but it's been delayed until next summer due to availability of steel. Not sure how, hopefully it won't delay any longer than that. And also, part of our rural rustic program, we completed Horton Hollow Road. We tarred and shipped it earlier this year, and we're in the process of constructing Pullen's Bluff Road and should be complete in the next week or so. And then, like we normally do, we'll give it some time to cure out, and then we'll place the surface treatment on Pullen's Bluff early next year. And also, we're preparing, we're getting our Turkey Ridge Road project ready, doing the preliminary engineering
towards the end of this year, and then construction planned for next summer. So that'll be a 0.8 mile section of Turkey Ridge Road will be done. We have another program, funding program, it's called County Safety and Operations Improvement Program, CSOIP. We are looking at constructing turn lane extensions at the 3 entrances to the town of Washington on Route 211. We only receive about $50K per year for this program, so these improvements will be constructed over the next several years. But they will improve the entering and exiting of those entrances there at the town. And regarding All Points Broadband, we have 53 outstanding permits. They're currently at bonding capacity, so we can't issue any more permits until that capacity is lifted. Understand that that may be in the process of happening, so we'll work with APB on that, but we have not had any of the work so far. None of it has been completed. None of the permits have been completed to this date, and would like to get some completed before we issue any more permits, but we'll work with APB on that and keep county administration informed of those discussions. That concludes the information I have for you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Just a couple questions, Madam Chair. With regards to first of all, thank you for what VDOT does. We got a great group here in Rappahannock. They're very responsive, and I know that it's probably the norm across the state. At least it's been my experience. A couple questions. The APB permits, and you may not know the questions, maybe for somebody else. Do you have any idea what the total number of permits that might be requested? I know you said they have 53 that's been issued. Do you have any idea? That's probably a question.
Yeah,
for
I
APB.
don't have a clue of that.
Thank you for that. Just wanted to ask that. Secondly, with regards to the mowing and the medians, thank you for that. I think everybody was tired of driving down the shoulder of the road along the fog line with the encroachment of the grass and deer jumping out. My question to you is, and I get this often, and I can't seem to figure out the cadence of it. Maybe you can help me. You're mowing the median strips, so maybe a strip down each side, and then it seems like in the spring sometimes it's a little bit wider swath on the shoulders, on the other side of the guardrails, what have you, to the fence lines or to the property lines, if you will, on 211. Is there any rhyme or reason behind that? I don't know if that's different contractors, someone that has a little more nerve to get up on the side of a hill, or you get some places that's really, really extraordinary. But I don't know what the answer is to that or what I should.
We have 3 rounds we do on primary routes, usually in the May-June timeframe, and then again July, August, and then one at the end of the year. We do a final cutback where we go from right away to as far back as we can get in the fall, so that we go through the whole winter and everything is cut back nicely. We have we're required to follow there's a pollinator, butterflies and other insects that are called pollinators. We try to leave as much as we can uncut to foster pollinator activity. And so that's why we limit our full cut to partial cuts, the first 2 cuts. And I can get you some more. We got a whole website on that, a web page. It gives you all the more information that you want.
Probably I need to know or want to know. Thank you for that. Lastly, thank you for the rumble strips. I know that was important to the Valley folks, and I don't know if it was helped me a whole lot because I'm on 211 and now I pay attention for every time a car hits a rumble strip going down 211. So I wound up counting them, and but anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions, just thank you again for your time. Mr. Nesbitt spent about 45 minutes with me. He bravely strapped in my car and let me show him that speed limit was really too fast for that particular road. So, and those who have contacted me about it appreciate your willingness to revisit that speed study in the spring. So.
You're welcome.
Mr. Settle, does this take care of the problem? I know the fire departments were having trouble with 231 and the noise of the side strips.
Yeah, I mean, To be quite frank, it depends on who you ask. You know, they understand the safety need for the rumble strips, and, you know, you're driving large vehicles, that road's just a little bit narrow, so it's, from what I hear from the fire department members, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. So they're happy about the rumble strips being less intrusive, so that makes it much easier with the big trucks, for sure.
And just to, first of all, thank Ben for me for the work he's doing on the Chester Gap property. I really do appreciate that, and I hope I can go up with him when he comes. I don't know if you are seeing any reports, but there was a very long thread on Facebook the other day about wrong-way drivers again, and I thought things were getting better. And I'm not sure that they're not getting better, but everybody has stories about people on the wrong side of the road in different particular areas of the county. Calvin Lane, I know, is one, and near Armada is one, and near Massey's Corner is one. But I don't know if you're still getting stats or anything on the wrong-way drivers, or if there's anything else we can do to help.
I haven't received any of those types of concerns recently. We'd be happy to work with the Public Safety Committee like we have in the past and see what we can do.
Okay, it'll probably, I would expect it'll be on their agenda again, just continues to pop up. I thought you had it pretty well resolved.
Yeah.
I was hoping.
We've increased on several, we determined, 7 to 10 crossovers we did enhance signing on. That seemed to help a little bit, but if there's more things that we need to do, we'll certainly look into it.
Appreciate that. All right, thank you very much for coming out.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, now we're going into public comment. For this period of the agenda, just to set expectations, we're here to accomplish the business of the local government for the sake of our citizens. We want to hear from our citizens, and this public comment period agenda item provides that opportunity. When speakers are called forward by the chair, please state your name and district. We also ask that your comments are limited to 3 minutes in order to provide equity to all speakers and to ensure our meeting is reasonable in length. If you have more information than can be summarized in 3 minutes, please provide leave-behind materials for the board's review. The chair will ask you to conclude your remarks if the time has elapsed. If you have questions during the session, you may ask for clarification from your board member or county administration staff after the meeting is adjourned. Anyone wishing to speak, please be recognized and come on up.
Hello, my name is Paige Flink, and I live in the Piedmont District. I'm here today to urge you to vote yes on accepting the federal appropriation for the courthouse project. Our family moved to Sperryville in 2022 after I retired from a 30-year career in executive leadership in the largest domestic violence shelter in the state of Texas. During that time, I administered more than $100 million in government grants and worked extensively with federal, state, and local officials to secure and manage public funding. That experience taught me 2 important lessons. First, government grants come with requirements and accountability, but those requirements are manageable. Second, when funding is offered, the expectation is that the communities will use it to improve the lives of their residents. Returning funds that have already been awarded is an exceptionally rare occurrence and that can make it much more difficult to secure future appropriations. This is the first, to my knowledge, the first federal appropriation awarded to Rappahannock County. I hope it will not be the first one we send back. As I reviewed the agenda materials, I noticed that the Davis-Bacon Act does not apply to this appropriation, although other federal procurement requirements do. I would appreciate, and I know that you can't answer these questions, but I would appreciate clarification on how the construction contractor will be selected. Will the contract be awarded based solely on the lowest bid? Has the county considered including incentives or requirements for hiring a percentage of Rappahannock County residents so that more of these federal dollars are invested directly in our local workforce and economy? The agenda also references Build America, Buy America requirements of this appropriation. If those provisions are being viewed as a concern, I would ask why. Purchasing American-made materials supports domestic manufacturing, strengthens our economy, and aligns with the intent of the funding.
I also recognize that the county has a small but dedicated staff. If reporting requirements or procurement processes are creating concerns about administrative capacity, I believe there are many retired professionals in Rappahannock County, myself included, who would gladly volunteer our experience to help the county successfully manage this project. This appropriation represents an opportunity to invest in an important public asset using federal tax dollars that Rappahannock County residents have already contributed. If we decline these funds, these dollars will simply be spent somewhere else, while our taxpayers continue to bear the same federal tax burden. I respectfully ask you to vote yes to accept this appropriation, complete the courthouse project, and demonstrate that Rappahannock County is a responsible steward of public funds and a community worthy of future federal investment. So thank you for your time and consideration. That was one thing. And then just briefly, we are having a Making Trash Bloom a celebration that our landfill in Amosville that's covered with wildflowers was part of a Sustainability Matters project that Gary Curry was very, very active in. And so on August 29th, we are having the Rappahannock County Butterfly Parade, the first one ever. It will be held in the River District. So I just wanted you guys to know that. And Sustainability Matters is really the organizer. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ron Macklin, Jackson District. On the costs in the courthouse. And I've gone through this before, but I'm going to go through it one more time. The only figures we've seen are the ones that, it's been about a year now when we've seen any figures, and they came from RS Means, the recognized group that puts out this information. And so I went to RS Means, or structured a question for RS Means, which was what would be the cost of a one-story, 25,000 square foot cinder block, two courtroom courthouse with office space. And what came back, and this is AI, just to be honest with you, the estimated 2026 RS Means construction cost for a one-story, 25,000 square foot cinder block courthouse in Washington, Virginia, ranges from approximately $5.2 million to $6.8 million. That's $2.08 a square foot to $272 a square foot. And the plans that we've been looking at are between $700 and $800 a square foot. My question is, why aren't we looking at this alternative? It would require a different location because of the size, but it would also have space for parking, and the security would be much better because it would have to be in an open space. And also, my thinking is that near the library would be an appropriate place, and that's also got excellent access to 211. And I think the taxpayers really, I mean, we're footing the bill, and this is a significantly lower price for a functioning courthouse of 25,000 square feet, and I think it needs to be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paige Glennie, Jackson District. Hopefully you all had a chance to read my commentary in the paper. All right, I want to talk about a little bit more detail about how response works in Rappahannock County. First of all, every company is backed up. Flint Hill has the more backup than anyone else. It gets Chester Gap, Amosville, Washington, as well as 1400. And I'm going to give you some numbers later that demonstrate how well they actually do, how well the county does. The county's requirements are county-wide requirements. They are not requirements for individual companies. The problem is that the sheriff does not record the box numbers of the calls in her data, all right? Consequently, the emergency services coordinator is limited to only doing his analysis based on a company basis, all right? I identified this issue in 2022 when I was still on the fire levy board. And I got the data from the sheriff, then I got the information on the box assignments, you know, address to whatever, all right? Then I spent, I don't know how many hours putting that all together, all right? And I now have a file for both 2022 and 2023 of all the responses, data by area, all right? And so let me go through, just do 2022, all right? For Company 1, Washington, if you take all their boxes and add them up, their average response time the average response time for the first unit on the scene is 9 minutes and 12 seconds. For Company 2, or it's Company 2 and 7 together, because that's the way the boxes are done, that same number, average response time for first unit on the scene, is 12 minutes and 19 seconds. For Company 3's first two areas, it's 10 minutes and 59 seconds. For Company 4's first two areas, it's 13 minutes and 26 seconds. For Company 5's first two area, it's 19 minutes and 12 seconds. For Company 9, it's 8 minutes and 35 seconds. Realize that there's paid staff there and their drive time to any location based on where the boxes are is very short. That's why they do so well. But the bottom line is, you're not getting much better than 8 minutes no matter where you are in this county, all right? That's what's going to happen. But I also want to point out the difference between if the commentary I responded to is correct, that you all were dealing with public safety, then
Please
why
wrap.
did you not do something about Castleton?
Please wrap up your comments. Time's up.
All right? That was it, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Olivia from the Piedmont District, Olivia Noble. I'm here to talk about the transient occupancy tax discussion that will be happening in a few moments. And I'll keep this short. We were excited to see the research that was produced about the financial impact of potentially changing the combined tax rate, and we look forward to this discussion. As a reminder, we believe that updating this rate is both equitable and fair and would create a better system and a more seamless system for both us, the guests, and for you all. We want to make sure that there is predictability in how much income you all are receiving for your projections, and creating a more competitive combined rate will free us from separating and valuing our meals and our lodging separately, which I think is more confusing for us, for the guests, and for you all. So we're eager to see the results of this conversation, and we were happy to see that the research was done, and I think it supports our position of reducing a combined tax rate for the transient occupancy tax. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon, Sheila Gressinger, Hampton District. First, I just want to make a statement that I didn't do last time. When they were having the conversation about First Energy, and they were talking about the poles and how, what safety requirements they needed for the size of them, they got into the view shed. And so I want to remind everybody what happened when we had cell towers. And when one cell tower was done, it was a blue that caused a lot of kerfuffle. And so it had to be repainted to this dark forest green, which then disappeared into a view shed. So perhaps in the conversations that we all have with First Energy, if they do come to a specific type of pole, perhaps we can include asking them to compensate or help us with the view shed by painting it a dark green that I think would help. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is the library. I've been going on social media, of course, and an interesting comment was a lady who had been around when the library was first moved from the town hall. And there was a huge fuss at that time. Oh my gosh, you're taking the library away from the town to the new location. So that kind of fussing and concern is not anything that's new. The one thing I wanted to bring up was a lot of people don't understand how much the library is used. And Amanda put this together that's available at the library, the stats from 25, new patron accounts established, 14,000 library visitors, 434 non-library uses, just a huge amount of activity. So there were people at the public meeting, because I did watch the video, that said, oh, I never see anybody there. Well, as a point in time, obviously, over a period of time, there are a lot of people that are using the library. And then the other fact is that on social media, there's a lot of confusion, misinformation, in my opinion, because everything that the Board of Trustees has done, they've done their due diligence. Another comment I made on one of those posts was, quite a few years ago, our former editor, Ben Peters, did a huge feature article about the extent of the engineering that went into developing the property of Rush River Commons. So it was something that was a huge undertaking, very well done to accommodate the soil and the property at that time. So that addresses that particular issue. The other thing is that with the library, if they were to stay in their current location, they would have to close for a period of time. And so that would be, how would we have our different meetings for the library? And with the theater closing right now, that's going to be impossible as well. So I really stand by the library trustees' thing and hope that it goes to fruition. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any other hands in the courtroom. We do have a few people online. Anyone online wishing to speak, please raise your Zoom hand and be recognized. I see one hand. Ms. Ramos?
She should be able to unmute.
Can you unmute?
Yeah, here I am.
There we go.
Sorry I couldn't be with you all today. Just wanted to tell you all, remind you all, that August 22nd through 30th is National Park Week. The national parks are celebrating their 110th birthday on that week. And on the 25th, which is a Tuesday, the park will be open for free for all. We're so lucky in so many ways to have Shenandoah National Park. And I hope we all can find a way to honor it that week or visit it some other time in the coming year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else online wishing to speak? All right, not seeing any hands, I will close public comment. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I'll move to adopt the consent agenda.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Moving to appointments, we have the Rappahannock County Recreational Facilities Authority. I know we have one person here that's an applicant. Do we have anybody else? Oh, great, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak before I go into some information that I've received from the chair?
Yeah. Good afternoon, my name's Dan from the Wakefield District. I saw this opportunity and I decided instead of sitting on the couch with my wife saying, man, I wish we could have a better park in the county. I wish we could do this. Decided to apply and actually be a part of change that can be made possible. So we have two beautiful daughters, age 2 and 4. There's nothing they love more than going to parks, right? We go to all these parks around the area, and I don't see a reason why they shouldn't also have a safe park here in this county. And I would like to serve on this board, to serve the community, to serve the younger generation of the community, and to be a part of making sure that the park is safe for the younger generation.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know the courtroom is not set up very well, but
Almost like we should work on a good board. I mean, pretty much what he said. I think there's no reason that we can't have a nice park, and rather than just letting it out on Facebook.
thank you very much. Thank you for submitting your application. All right. If the board will allow me, I have some information that I would like to share, and then I'd like to make a motion. As the supervisor representative on the RCRFA, first of all, I want to thank all the applicants, because when we cried for help, people got involved, and I like that. And their willingness to serve on the authority. RCRFA is entering a very exciting and busy time. And it is important to understand that the authority is going to be working unusually hard over the next 2 years. We expect to receive a final decision by September 30th on the RCRFA's application for a $250,000 Land and Water Conservation Fund matching grant to build a modern and inclusive playground, rebuild the badly deteriorated basketball court, and resurface the tennis pickleball courts. This is a big undertaking for the all-volunteer group, and we're going to need all hands on deck to raise the matching funds needed, communicate with the community about the project, solicit community input on the final playground design, and contract for and oversee the work. And that work, by the way, is in addition to the ongoing work at the park, which along with day-to-day operations includes an ambitious invasives management program, enhanced natural areas management education, the annual Fodder Stack 10K Classic, dark skies programming, and free fishing day. We are especially pleased to have applicants from parents raising their children in Rappahannock County who are willing to be a part of this important work. I want to warn you, the RCRFA chair, Becky Burke, has told me that she's excited to have new members with grant writing, communications, website content, community engagement, and project management skills, hint, hint, and has lots of ideas for putting you all to work right away. The one thing I will note is that 2 of the openings are for 4-year terms. The 3rd opening is to fill the remaining of a 1-year term of a member who had to step down early for personal reasons. So unless one of you strongly prefers the single-year term, I'm going to propose a slot. So speak up if you have a preference. Okay. And rest assured, we will be happy to reappoint members who are part of the park's success. So with that said, I would like to make a motion. Let me see what is written so I don't get it. Nothing that I can see. Nope, that's public comment. All right, move to appoint. We're going to move to appoint, and this is based on the time frame that people's applications came in. That was how we decided it made sense. Gary Jenkins and Stevie Ross to as citizen representatives to the RCFA to 4-year terms ending on June 30th, 2030. And we'd like to appoint Dan Kelling to serve the remaining unexpired term ending on June 30th, 2027, and waive all informalities with the appointment process.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Get ready. That's a high-performing group. That's all I'll tell you.
It is, and we have a lot to do. And if you don't know the chair, Becky is sitting right back here. I'm sure you'll get to know her very well soon. So thank you very much for coming out. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so very much. Thank you. All right, old business.
Chair.
Yes. Oh, sure. Thank you, Sheriff. I'm going to give it a second. It's not the quietest machine.
I'm gonna ask Gary with the changes.
Actually, no, it's got it. It's coming up. It sounded like All right, thank you very much. Moving into transient occupancy tax discussion, is that going to be Bonnie's kicking us off?
Bonnie's pointing at me, so I think.
Okay.
As board members are aware, during the last budget cycle, there's a lot of discussions about transient occupancy tax and what the rate should be. The board made some assumptions in your budget deliberations and ultimately went through the public hearing process and changed both the meals and the transient occupancy tax rates, the meals to 5% and the TOT to 10%. Unique to Rappahannock County and Madison County is state law that allows only those two counties to allow businesses, bed and breakfast, to pay a combined tax if they want. Madison County does not use that. Rappahannock County has offered that for several years, but for several years our tax rates were 4% meals and 4% lodging. So it really didn't make a difference whether it's combined or not. And with the board's move to separate these two and this last budget process, it, I guess, put light on the combined tax. So there's been a lot of discussion since then from the community as well as within the board on whether the adopted rates of 10% for lodging and 5% for meals and the combined wording in the ordinance right now that was adopted, which says if you want to file a combined tax rate, you file at the higher of the two rates, whether that makes sense for the community or not. The board asked staff to come back at this meeting and provide a draft ordinance that would allow a combined rate that was not the higher of the two, but a combined rate at a designated percentage amount to be adopted or move forward towards adoption if you desired. That draft ordinance is provided, and there's a blank for the percentage. Ms. Jewell prepared some estimates on the nuances of a combined tax versus a separate tax. Is that in the state, some of the taxation that comes from lodging is restricted for tourism, for a strict transient occupancy tax. However, for the combined tax, that same restriction does not apply. So there's some interesting algebra that happens if you file combined versus not on how much is actually restricted for tourism. And so the table provided attempts to show that those dollars, that if you encourage people to do combined, it would add to your general ability to spend money as opposed to the amount that would be restricted. We did learn that we cannot levy a decimal tax, 8.5, 7.5 with our taxing system. So it needs to be a whole number if the board wanted to move forward with introducing an ordinance to do that. If you did that, it would have to go through a normal public hearing process, and we would encourage you only to adopt an ordinance that is effective at the beginning of a quarter, because then it would be really confusing within the taxing structure if we did it mid-quarter. Staff believes that we're into the fiscal year. These decisions were probably best made during the next budgeting cycle, and if the experience that we all feel, the businesses and the collections are not acceptable, then you have an opportunity only a few short months away now when we start talking about budget again, which is amazing, to make some course corrections. You could, of course, direct staff to advertise in the next newspaper and have a public hearing next month. We would just need to know what number to put into that slot in the proposed ordinance.
Mr. Settle, I know you've been working hard on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of discussion, and I want to thank Olivia and Katie for pointing out some very important data and just points in general with regards to how their business operates and how and their tax rate, whether it's combined or not combined. And I'll tell you, the last time we met, you gave me this. It's all beat up. It's got coffee on it and everything. I've looked at it 100 times, or many times, I should say. I wish that we had had this debate way before we finalized the budget. And I think we can all agree on that. So I'm going to go back and maybe start where I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say as well. I know that I've met with Olivia and Katie 2 or 3 times in combination with Mr. Janot and Mr. Whitson as well. We teased out a lot of important facts. But here's the facts as I know them and understand them. I know when we approved this back in June, it was caught a lot of folks off guard. And I still feel very comfortable that we advertised and through public notice and talked about this on many occasions. And there were plenty of opportunities to discuss this. And quite frankly, a couple points that we didn't even think of that bothered me to the point, especially the point where you had already booked reservations in the future. And you know, how do I call a customer and tell them that the taxes have gone up to 10% versus the 4% or that you advertised at? That's a big deal for a business owner. So that was number one. And I'm thinking this is a valid conversation to have. The timing is not good at all. To your point, Mr. Curry, I think these are best at the beginning of a budget cycle and tease it out, put it to rest, and move on. So we had that conversation. I still feel like we did. This board did its due diligence in advertising and talk about it on many occasions, even going back to a year ago when I was not in this position and sitting in the audience where you were at, and I believe it was Ms. Comer, and I don't want to point you out. I believe said, you know, I'm not in agreement with this, but we got a year to figure it out. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Comer, but I remember that resonating with me, and I'm thinking this is a big deal. And you get so busy, it's nobody's fault that there's so many other topics, like a courthouse, like fire and rescue, and all the other things that dominate your time. And we meet, you know, regularly once a month and many other times when necessary. But I think opportunity lost there, and no one's fault. Secondly, I made a bunch of notes here. You know, it's been a long time since the rates were even revisited, you know, the rates, and I think that's another disservice to our citizens and our businesses. We've operated at 4% for many years, and we know that things haven't got cheaper. We know, and we talked about this board specifically, and I appreciate Ms. Donna Hayes' leadership of the capital improvement plan and leaning forward and not kicking the can down, and I think we all understand that and buy into that, so we don't get behind the curve. Quite frankly, we did, and we were, and so we had to make this substantial increase in taxes to catch up for many different reasons. And it affected you, and it affected other businesses. And I remember sitting in our first meeting, and we were looking at the language that was stricken out and changed, and in the ordinance, and I believe Mr. Janot might have been in that first meeting with me, and you all had looked at that and deciphered and broke it down, and it made sense. This is really clunky language that's tough to understand, and I think in that meeting, for me personally, I went from one side to the other thinking what it meant. I even went and spoke with Mr. Curry, who has helped me work through that. He says, yeah, it's a little bit clunky, and maybe reading a cleaner version might help. And in fact, it did, and we all come to the conclusion it meant what it said, and it kind of recentered everything. I talked about the impacts on your reservations, and I was not at the meeting that I believe our Commissioner of Revenue came on, Ms. Graham, who we just recognized for extraordinary service, tenure, came over and kind of put that to bed, if you will, or to rest. She explained that the new meals tax and lodging, or the tax rates, would be applied prior to July 1 to that same rate for reservations and moving forward. So that was a good thing for me personally, and of kind of putting that to a side. It is what it is. But remaining open-minded about all this and the potentials on, the impacts. I've only heard from one B&B, and I know that we don't have that many. We have more tourist homes, and, the numbers speak for themselves. I looked at the list today. You have to really go down through the list just to find a B&B. So I know it's a unique business. And I've even asked questions. Well, how does this affect another business? And what I feel like I somewhat understand to some level. You never know till you walk in someone's shoes how it's impacting you all. And I see it through the research that you've done. So I say all that to say I'm leaning towards sticking with the decision we made in May when we voted on the budget. This is probably a conversation that needs to continue. I don't know that I quite understand the chart that Ms. Jewell has put together. I think I do, but I have some questions there for guidance, and maybe my colleagues can help me work through that. So that's where I am at this moment. I'm, again, open-minded, but my final concern is if we carve out of a number of businesses one unique circumstance, and justified as you've explained it, what are the unintended consequences of that group coming back saying, well, we're unique in this way? I think we would have to, we would listen anyway, but we'd have to probably make some adjustment with that as well. That's kind of a little bit all over the place, but where I'm at this moment.
Thank you.
Sure, can I make a comment? I appreciate the work you put into this, Mr. Settle, and the work you guys have put into this also. If I'm understanding this correctly, we would actually have more unrestricted revenue by making the change. If we picked 8%, we're gonna have $6,000 more annually. Am I understanding that right? Because we moved from the restricted to unrestricted revenue?
That's the analysis, yes.
That's the analysis, and there are some assumptions here, but that's $6,000 extra, which isn't a huge number. However, if we were to make the change and encourage the other 7 bed and breakfasts to report combined, they would be incentivized to report combined, and we actually would end up with more revenue total.
And ultimately, the balance of restricted versus unrestricted is the main point. However, depending on what percentage is selected, that could also affect the top line total revenue as well. If it didn't hit the actual weighted average of how much is really lodging and how much is meals. So too many variables to easily guess. So you make a couple assumptions that are likely to be typical, and then try to put some numbers to it. So it's a relatively small amount of change in the amount of revenue that's restricted. Is what it comes down to.
I guess my point is, if we selfishly made the decision only from the county's perspective, which I don't want to do, we actually could end up with more revenue, unrestricted revenue from this. And so the piece that I don't fully understand, never being in your shoes, is how difficult is this to implement? I know we have to advertise, you're public comment, but if we implemented this mid-year, how difficult is that to do?
We're not the actual
yeah.
implementers.
Treasurer.
Want to come up?
So it's easy for
Ultimately,
you.
the forms
It's
are
easy.
changing, and that's why I was, if you did make a change, we would strongly encourage you to make it effective at the beginning of a quarter. Meals and lodging taxes are levied on a quarterly basis, and returns are needed to be submitted on a quarterly basis. And so if you break it up further than that, then it's going to get very complicated. If it's on a quarter, we're changing forms, changing our software, and then changing behaviors out in the world for those who may not be paying attention as much as Hopkins is, and then we're going to have to educate change again after we were just educating change, which is not impossible. It's just, steps that would need to happen.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through your chart a little bit, just so we make sure everybody's clear?
Sure.
Please.
So I want to be very clear that these numbers apply only to the 2 bed and breakfasts that are currently reporting combined. These numbers are solely related to those 2 businesses. We know that over the period of time, April 1, 2025 through March 31st, 2026, there were 9 B&B and Country Inns reporting. Again, of those, only 2 reported combined. And we know that the tax revenue received from those 2 will total $15,855. If you derive from that $15,855 at 4% tax rate for meals and for lodging, the actual sales, and then you determine what the revenue would be at the 10% lodging and the 5% meals, that revenue would result in $25,764. That's the top number on the chart. If then you assumed that 25% of the sales were from meals and 75% were for lodging, and you then applied a combined rate that's down here, it shows what the resulting unrestricted revenue would be at 5%, would be $19,819 compared to the $25,764 at the rate that is currently adopted. So that's a reduction of $5,945. Next assumed rate, 6% combined. That would yield resulting unrestricted revenue of $23,783. Again, we're talking only these 2 businesses, because that's the specific data that I have is for these 2 businesses. $23,783 compared to the $25,764 with the rates that are adopted now, which is a reduction of $1,981 in revenue. Keep doing that for 7%, 8%, 9%, and 10%, and you see how that revenue compares back to the $25,764 at the current rates.
I want to make it clear, the businesses that have filed, combined or otherwise, are protected. We don't know who they are. This is aggregated of the 2.
Right.
We don't know the names. The treasurer provided just an aggregate pool of dollars.
Yep. So I guess my point is that, and I appreciate the comment from Mr. Settle, that what we don't want to do is after the fact revisit because of one specific issue and try to revisit a decision that's been made. But this actually looks like if we were at, say, 8%, that it would be we would actually come out with more unrestricted funds. Not less.
For these 2, with the assumption that 25% is meals and the other is lodging.
Because the alternative is they could report separately.
Correct.
Yeah.
They could report separately and file the 10% and the 5%.
Yep.
Any other questions for Ms. Yule? No. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks. Any input
No, I shared most of my input in July. We are into the fiscal year, and I don't think we should, I think if anything, we wait. This happened, something very similar, Mr. Settle is correct, something very similar happened last year, in the 11th hour. Mr. Whitson suggested that there could be another way to raising meals and lodging taxes. And, I agreed at that point in time to link arms with him, and I did. I said, we have 1 year. And 1 year went by, and we found ourselves in the exact same place. And then, again, this year, in the 11th hour, presented is possibly another way. And this time after we had voted on this budget, and that's where I am. If we're going to consider this, then look at it for fiscal year 28. I believe it's December or January. I can't remember which now. I think it must be December, because I think we vote on it in January. We all are allowed to give input on the budget schedule and calendar. So we look at it, we provide input, and then we vote on it. I know for 3 years in a row, I have attended every single budget meeting, only one of those via Zoom. So we know when it's coming, and we can better plan. Because what other people might not know is Miss Jewel, I know I have been talking with her in the past in early November, and she has already been knee-deep in budget work for the next year. So if we keep moving this target, we're eating into our 3 good months of work that maybe she would not have her nose deep in planning the next fiscal year. So that's where I am, and I don't think anyone will be surprised that that's where I was in July, and it hasn't changed.
And for me, I'm very similar to you. I feel like we have done our due diligence for our budget meetings. I think we all work very hard, and Ms. Jewell and Mr. Curry work very hard to educate us on the topics that we need to know about. And this has been a discussion for 2 years, not the lodging at 10%, but just meals and lodging in general. And although tax increases are not what people want to see, it's reality in balancing a budget. And I do hope that the reality is the guests coming in will enjoy where they are and the scenic beauty of Rappahannock County and go, yeah, their tax rate went up, but I think it's well worth it to come out here and shut off my phone and enjoy Rappahannock County. So I would rather keep very close eyes on the data because we get it monthly as far as sales in food and lodging. So let's keep a close eye on it. If we determine that we, went too far next year during the budget season, we can always change it. But I'd rather not change it as we just got into a new budget year.
Madam Chair, a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
One, Bonnie, you say this was these were 2 businesses. We don't know who they are. We don't need to know, obviously. Is there an opportunity, to do all the businesses to get a true, would Ms. Graham have the data for all the businesses?
For the 9, yes.
And it would be interesting, I don't know how that would change this chart. Here I am asking you to do something else. As Ms. Comer said, you're knee-deep. If you haven't seen this lady work and been by her office, it's just unbelievable, all of them on their desk. But this is important. I would like to see the data for all the businesses what those averages will be. If this chart stands to truth, then I guess we'll see a huge increase in unrestricted funds if all those businesses are similar. Second piece is, and we talked a little bit about this, and I take no credit for this. I really give Olivia and Katie the credit for this. Is, you know, it does provide some level of predictability in the budget, and I know predictability in doing budgets. It's nice to know exactly what the numbers are. You would know that, but they're all over the place sometimes. But I don't know if this ask for anything with regards to that, but I don't know that I haven't changed my mind. I agree with Ms. Comer. I think this is something that as we're getting into the fall months here and talking about our budget, that maybe we specifically put this on as a topic and discuss it. Maybe we'll have some more data, as the chair indicated. But at some point, I wouldn't mind seeing that data for all the businesses.
Okay.
Maybe that's a budget ask for 2028.
What do we have to, like the third or fourth question for the next budget cycle?
We do, yes.
Yeah.
What's that?
The third or fourth budget question of the FY28 cycle already,
We're starting.
or as we're building.
I just want to point out, in case my comments weren't clear, last year I watched from the cheat sheets when all of that happened. So it was easy to watch that last year. And I think the difference here is that the decrease in the tax rate doesn't end up with less funds as far as the unrestricted amount of money. This doesn't hurt the county. And I think it's a very different situation than last year when we said, hey, we've got to lower the rate, and it ended up hurting the county. We ended up already having approved the budget and ended up behind because of what happened. This wouldn't do that to us.
Well, that totally depends on the rate that you adopt.
Yeah.
And the actual percentage of lodging versus meals. And so, if it's 10 and 5 and you adopt some number in the middle, and most of the charges for B&B are lodging, say it's 95.5, I have no idea. But you lower that number down to 8 or 7, then you're losing top line revenue too. And the amount that's restricted is changing. So the pie is changing and how they cut the pie up is changing. It gets complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, and this discussion is really, for me, showcases why we should not do this in the middle of this fiscal year has started. So yes, we have a jump start on what really needs to be looked at for fiscal year 28, and we know what information we want, but it's August. If we change something, we advertise it, we hear about it in September, and then it doesn't even go into effect until after that.
It would be October.
And then, and that is my biggest concern.
Ms. Jewell, if we wanted to study this for this budget season, is it even possible to study it at a different rate to see how it lines up with what we're doing currently? So we could actually have an educated decision or a better educated decision next year?
Yes, we could do that. I mean, we can do this for any period of actual revenues that the board would like, and can get that information from the treasurer. It's just I can't get it business by business. I have to get it in one lump sum.
For those B&Bs who have filed separately, then we can inherently go back and look at their relative percentages.
Yes.
Historically.
Yes.
And we can ask all of them if they want to volunteer what their percentages are, if they want to participate in a study.
I think that would help me for moving forward for the next budget season, is to have that hard data.
And I would think that if they would participate, if there was a possibility of their rate going down, and we were to, in 2028, adopt something like this, and with the networking that the bed and breakfasts have amongst themselves, that I think is important as well. Again, I've only heard from that's no dig on you all at all. I think it's your persistence, and frankly, I compliment you on it. But there's more work to be done here, I believe, or more discussion, I should say.
So the board, I put 2 recommended actions, and neither of those may be aligned with the board's thinking. If you take no action, this might pop up back again between now and the budget cycle at the whim of, the board. If you're of a mind to take a vote to defer it out, you could do that. Or of course you could have us work on the ordinance. So you can do nothing. You can tell us to basically table the discussion for the board until the budget cycle, or you could ask us to advertise an ordinance.
It sounds like we're not ready to make a motion to advertise collectively. And so there's probably not a need to make a motion to defer. We just have no action, think about it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's where everybody's at.
All right. I agree. Thank you, Ms. Jewell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Real estate taxation exemption by board designation.
Yes. Members of the community, particularly with RAC, reached out to board members and county administration to ask about how they might go through a process to have their property become tax exempt. They've recently come to own the theater property in town and didn't own any property before, at least real property. The Code of Virginia does provide a process through which boards of supervisors can exempt real estate taxes and personal property taxes for organizations that meet certain requirements, including being a nonprofit and 501c number. The Constitution and the state code also exempt a whole list of entities from general classes of churches to particular organizations like the PATC, for example. They're listed. Those that aren't listed and meet the certain requirements can be exempted by a board of supervisors for a locality. Not required, but staff has suggested that if the board's inclined to do that, you should have a standardized process so all the potential groups that meet the requirements follow the same application process consistently, and then have a very clear renewal process going forward to ensure that whatever conditions warranted that entity to be tax exempt remain in place going forward. Just because you're a 501c today doesn't mean you are tomorrow. Just because you meet some of the state required requirements today don't mean you necessarily meet them tomorrow. At your last meeting, you asked staff to put, 2 meetings ago, you asked staff to put together a policy. We've done that. I've shared it with the treasurer and commissioner of revenue and RAC, and the draft policy is attached. My recommendation to you is to adopt the policy, certainly take constructive feedback on the policy if you believe it should change. Because it's a policy, not an ordinance, you could change it at any time. It loses some of the benefit of being consistent, but if you found an error, it would be relatively easy for you to do that. Important to say is that any time you exempt real or property taxes, you must do that by ordinance. And so that process requires public hearings before the community who can come speak. This policy envisions the application coming to administration. We vet all the requirements, very well spelled out, and track the state code. And then if and when those, all the items are complete, we bring it to the board, advertise a public hearing, and then the board can vote up or down whether you think that is appropriate. Then going forward, annually, that entity would have to submit proof that they continue to be a 501c entity. Every 3 years, they would have to submit an application with some broader questions answered to ensure that's still appropriate. If those, that application is to county administration, If everything seems to be in order, they'll be automatically renewed. If it's not, the county administrator would submit a report to the board. You would go through then a public hearing to potentially remove that ordinance and end that tax break. So county administration, the original ordinance would allow that to continue on kind of indefinitely, and county administration would check on it. And then the ordinance would identify that the board can revoke it after a public hearing, like you would need to do for any ordinance if you want to change it. So that's generally the policy. I'd be happy to go through it in any detail that you would like. The main comment from RAC was they would love for the renewal period to be longer. This is 3 years. They thought maybe 5 years. Part of the reason I suggested a staff or administrative review was to take some of that 3-year burden away, so it's not coming up to the board and having public hearings every 3 years. If you're still checking all the boxes, we don't need to go through all that. And that's why I thought 3 years was reasonable, assuming they keep their 501c status. And like I said, we can tweak this over time if we find that it's inefficient for some reason.
Yes, sir.
One question, Madam Chair. Do we have any nonprofits now that are exempt?
Well,
I
I'm
know
not
we don't have
aware
a
of,
policy, but-
I'm not aware of any ordinances that past boards have adopted. And the conversation with Ms. Graham is that we will review our records, and anybody who maybe should have an ordinance will have an ordinance going forward, and this policy will apply. And so we might have a few that come to the board in the next period if you adopt this. And this is an annual process, so typically you need to have your application in well before the change of the tax year. There's a kind of a special walk-in period for anybody who files shortly after you adopt this. Otherwise, they'd have to wait a whole year. But yes, there is some cleanup we think that needs to be done.
My guess is that could arise a situation where somebody who meets the criteria laid out in this policy could still not be a group that we would want to give the tax exempt status to. By writing out the policy, is there any risk that we could be criticized for, arbitrarily deciding we just don't like this group and we don't want to give them that exemption? Does that
Of course, you can be criticized.
Well, legally criticized, let me put it that way. Let me look at art.
Well, I mean, I think without non-legal opinions, if you adopt a policy, then it is incumbent upon us to follow the policy. And if you go through and you ask staff to provide an ordinance that simply grants it without going through any of the steps of the policy, I don't think that would be a good pathway. I don't know about legalities of it, but.
Well, as far as being criticized legally downstairs, they'll take your money if you got it and they'll file the papers. So, yeah, you have to follow the policies. You can't get, like they were doing with a couple of years ago. They singled out a political organization, fundraising organization, and then it is denied the status because of the political differences. That's the thing you need to avoid trouble with this sort of thing. So if it's going to be, like the 501c for Bluebirds, and then it's the American Nazi Party, they're both on the same level. Just like we discussed with the open mic policy, you can't viewpoint discriminate, or like with the sign ordinance that we discussed, you can't viewpoint discriminate.
But these are gray areas, some of these, and the code says you must consider these things. It doesn't say that you can only issue if they meet these certain requirements. Like having an ABC license, you must consider that. Does it, how does that play into it? It might be the sum of all of the 8 or 9 different criteria. It may influence the board's decision. It is a legislative decision. But if you're going to start making differences on protected classes, I think you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Yeah, the fairly debatable standard is not going to insulate you from that.
Yeah, and probably the written policy or not, if we approve 5 groups and then a group comes up that we just don't like, that you know, the Nazi Party 501c3 or whatever it is, and we deny it, that could be an issue. But this policy probably doesn't influence that. That's what I'm,
I don't believe so.
okay.
It would just standardize the process through which you would review and possibly provide you a defensibility against somebody coming in saying you arbitrarily consider my application when you have all these things that are required that you reviewed and that you can point to specific points of their application that didn't meet your standard.
I'm kind of wondering if we couldn't have a checklist that says this organization meets this, provided by the office, so that we are not taking a subjective look, we're looking at it objectively, and these are the things required, and yes, you meet them, no, you don't.
Yeah, and one of the things that I didn't prepare with this is the application form, which should serve as that.
One thing that concerns me with this is, as we sit here, we're just talking about the taxes. And I know the group that facilitated this conversation, and my goodness, they could have contributed to the county in many different ways and fit, by definition, nonprofit, perfectly in my mind. What I know now is we're, exempting taxes, and here we are raising taxes on other folks. And just the perception of that is, we need to be prepared for that. Although probably insignificant in the big scheme of things, money-wise, I'll say it again, every dollar's hard, so.
It might be appropriate to defer this to the budget discussions and try to see if we can put our arms around what the implication is. I don't know.
I was actually just gonna state that I can tell you I'm not comfortable voting on this today. I have to, this is much bigger than I'm prepared to vote on. So I'll let my colleagues, see how you guys feel about that and go from there.
Do you mean the policy in general or
The policy in
the
general,
specific?
yeah.
Not the specific, okay.
I'd be fine moving it to a budget discussion.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Mr. Sutter? You okay with that?
Sure.
So is that budget question number 4?
Boy,
It's only
August.
Why don't you move back one?
All right, courthouse project.
Just a quick update today. There is good progress. On July 27th, the courthouse project planning oversight committee met in this room, reviewed some of the past concepts prepared by Glavine Homes and a few new concepts prepared by Glavine Homes. The entire intent of this gathering, which all POC members attended, either in person or online, was to seek to resolve as many of the concerns that were expressed by the court staff following the earlier concept. And there were a few expressed through letter to the board and otherwise. So it was a very good discussion, and ultimately a discussion that identified that any scenario is going to have some compromise, and it's an exercise in identifying which pros and cons, how we want to line them up. But the group did come to did coalesce on a couple of the new proposals. And they keyed in on back to a 3-story proposal, which allows a little bit better efficiency for inmate transport, as well as a secondary kind of backup position for a 2-story configuration. And the biggest difference with these configurations is that the courtrooms are now stacked. So rather than courtrooms being on one floor and clerks being on another floor, now we have, the 2 courtrooms each on their own floor with offices around them, which helped with that, the competing pathways of of the inmates, the staff, and the public. So that's really just a primer. I expect to have an agenda item at your next meeting with Claudine Holmes present to share these two concepts further refined because they were really preliminary. So they'll refine those and then bring those to the board with the discussion from the POC.
Sounds good. I'm glad you had all the members participate.
Who was on that committee, Gary?
That's the Circuit Court Judge, Judge Plowman, and Judge Fisher has joined occasionally. General District Court Judge Foster, and then JDR Judge Cupp. Then Sheriff Compton, Mr. Goff, and myself. Local appeals court judge has kind of been an ex officio. Judge Clements has been involved. She did attend the other day. I'm sorry. And our two clerks, clerk of the Circuit Court and the combined clerk.
Thank you.
All right, unless there are questions, I'm going to move on to the VA-10 grant funding. I know there's been a lot of conversation.
Yeah, Ms. Flink identified earlier, notwithstanding the paperwork that was originally sent to us, identifying that Davis-Bacon wage rates, prevailing wage rates would apply to this grant. Further discussions with the USDA indicate that they will in fact not. And that was a big factor in the potential increased cost. Build America, Buy America provisions do apply, which will add costs, but potentially and complexity because some parts and things are hard to get, but there's a process to have a certain portion that maybe comes from Israel or something, right? Security equipment. And procurement is also a big part, and there were some questions earlier about would it be low bid, and taking this federal money requires it to be low bid. And we wouldn't be able to go through the exact procurement process that I plan to use, which is a pre-qualification round of contractors followed by a lump sum bid. That's not allowed in the federal procurement process, but you can combine them into one where you have a low bid with very clear requirements for experience. So that's what we would have to do. We did ask our consultant team to review these requirements and get back to us with what they felt the financial impact would be. I can't tell you right now whether it's what impact it would be. I do not believe it is significant as the Davis-Bacon wage rates were, which is helpful. We do not have a critical time clock on this right now, although Ms. Jewell did determine that there is 3 years once everything's signed up and done with the USDA to move forward. And we're encouraged by the fact that Congressman Subramaniam has suggested that maybe more money is available to us. We tried this past year and didn't have any additional funding allocated to our project, but maybe next cycle would. And so if we add the $1,015,000 to another tranche, would be very meaningful to the project. So stand by. I don't need any action. You're welcome to take action if you want, but we will, I suspect in September, when Glavine Holmes is here to talk to you about the concepts, we'll have the financial information more dialed in on the likelihood of the changes. Another speaker mentioned RS Means, which is a cost estimating book. Downey and Scott out of Warrenton don't just use RS Means. They have a little bit more complicated process. So what they estimated is a very detailed cost estimate report for a potential project. Your scope, our scope with Glavine Holmes requires cost estimates to be updated all the way through the project. So whether we're at the very early concept stage or as we move through to detailed design, we'll continue to get iteratively more detailed cost estimates so we can better manage our expectations, public's expectations on what this project's actually going to cost. And I suppose if the board wanted to have a cinder block courthouse, you could do that. And it might cost less than the estimate that was provided that is brick clad, probably cinder block. Those are design choices that I don't recommend, but certainly are an option.
And if I understand correctly, your office is in communication with a representative, so it's not like we're
Yes.
offending anyone for offering us $1 million.
Right. Hard to say who
Back to offending
I or we
people.
offend
Yes.
from day to day, but Bonnie's been in direct contact with USDA and staff in Congressman Subramanian's office.
Thank you, that was my exact, I knew the answer to that, but I was gonna ask it because I did want it on record that we are in touch with those administering this grant, contrary to what others have implied.
Thank you. All right, any other courthouse stuff? Good. Regional fiber to the home broadband project discussion. I had asked Mr. Curry to get a phone call with Mr. Inez because I just felt like we were still in the lack of good communication stage that we've been in for multiple years. And I personally thought it was a very good conversation. We did get some numbers that Gary's going to share. And he did talk about where they are currently and what's going on in surrounding areas like Fauquier, which ultimately, if, surrounding counties get going faster, it may get to converge on us, in my opinion, anyway. The one thing that came out of that meeting that I'm most happy about is Tom, Mr. Ennis, and Mr. Curry have agreed to have a phone call every Friday before a board meeting. So we can get updated numbers and really have good information to share at the board meeting instead of waiting for quarterly meetings or individuals to contact him. So Mr. Curry, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can share some of the positive things happening in Rappahannock County that maybe some people don't even know about.
Yes, so I agree. It was a good conversation, and a couple statistics. The project, this is the Vadi project, which is of current critical concern because those Vadi dollars are backed by ARPA dollars through the state, and they have a deadline of December 2026. Hard to say if anything will change for that. But the Vadi project has 121.8 design miles, and that's 110 underground and about 11 aerial. So earlier, when the project was originally proposed, it was pretty much all aerial, and then we recall the difficulty with coming to terms on who's going to share what cost for poles, and so it went underground. And the state rescoped the project, reduced the number of addresses, but kept the dollar amount the same. They reduced the number of addresses for Vadi because the new BEAD was coming, and now BEAD has basically been awarded. I don't know if the agreements are signed quite yet to all points, and there's another 20 some odd $1 million for Rappahannock County for BEAD to pick up where Vadi leaves off. So of those 122 or so miles, 47 are complete. So that's a helpful value. They really just started here maybe 5 months ago or so. And I don't know for sure if that's, conduit plus fiber was the metric they're using for complete, but there's a lot of conduit out there in their fiber service area 3 and 2, which is kind of Castleton and Sperryville, all down 231. There's making a lot of good progress. Looking at it from a different perspective, Mr. Ennis told us that there were 1,436 Vadi addresses. And of those, 684 were passed to marketing, which means that's that 90-day in advance window. And as of our call, 208 could be installed because the fiber was, to their pedestal. And of those, she said 45 were signed up. And at that time, less than 10 were physically connected with a drop to their home. I've noticed in the last couple weeks advertising has really picked up for All Points on social media. And I'm not sure if that's all areas of the county, how it's geofenced, or, but I'm seeing it a lot now. He shared earlier today that they just finished another area in Spareville, which was another 200 passings. I'm not sure what number that adds to from the list I just read to you, whether it's of the 680, it's another 200 of the 684. So it was 208 could be installed now. Maybe that is now 408. I'm not sure how that 200 plays in, but they are actively working. Now, Mr. Nesbitt did share the permitting side of things, and of course, All Points has a bond for the entire state, which is a lot. And as they bump up against the top of that, they either have to increase the bond amount or find other permits to close. And I think they're doing both. In my conversations with Mr. Ennis, and he had said that they finally were able to close out some of the Culpeper tickets. And part of the problem, as Mr. Ennis, or complexity, I should say, he shared with us that a VDOT ticket is with the project from kind of birth all the way through installation of the fiber, which sometimes the conduit work is done in sections, but the fiber is not ready to pull until later when all the different conduit sections are pieced together, because these are like 2-mile sections of permits. And so I know he said there were some discussions with VDOT on how to maybe change how that works, where they would have separate permits for conduit installation, then maybe an overarching fiber deployment permit that would allow them to close down conduit permits quicker, rather than having them sit there and look like they're dormant, but really they're just waiting for all the different conduit sections to fit together so they can then pull the fiber through the various conduits. So they're working on that. He suggested that they were good conversations and he thought they were productive. Whether that happens, they increase their bonding amount, which I think is like, has tens and tens of millions of dollars right now across the state. I don't know the actual number, but it's a lot. So that's what we know. We have been frustrated without knowing kind of the bigger picture, and our conversation with him helped us better understand the bigger picture, which is helpful. They have a lot of work to do to get done. He shared with us a pathway, cadence rate that they need to hit for us over the rest of the calendar year, and they have a plan to do that. The biggest impediment is making sure they have these VDOT permits resolved so they can work as much as they want, where they want.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the bead portion, the next project, bead, he was saying was going to be about 18 months before.
He shared that their chief executive officer or operating officer had challenged them to complete it in a short period of time. That makes sense. If I'm them, they want to get done as fast as possible and as efficient as possible. From a grant standpoint, I'm not sure how long they have for that, longer. We already have even less to do with BEAD. The funding, our share, there's no local share of funding for BEAD, and it doesn't involve local governments at all. It's directly with the federal, state government, and the ISP. I assume that they will still involve us to help them with the community and share information. That was one of the things that Ms. Donahue and I expressed, is that it'd be really nice to know when you're going to have a marketing blitz in our community. We can help. We can be a megaphone. It would be helpful for us to know when you're about to have an event over at Hill House Nursery, because didn't know until I saw it on Facebook. Sure. And he expressed that he understood that there's a lot of different functioning groups within All Points, and they maybe need to interface a little bit better. And he told us that he would express that internally, that we can help them do a better job at some of these things.
I had asked if they have a particular marketing person that's focused on Rappahannock County, because we could bring them out, show them around to make sure we know what this, the advertising schedule is going to be. But I don't think at this point there's one point person. The one thing we found out that I did not know is the install fee is now being waived. It was $99.
It was $199 in the original application, VATI application. The rescoping dropped that to $99, and then he said they aren't charging it right now. I think, you know, they reserve the right to go back to $99 at some point in time, but for right now, they're not charging it.
Yep. So I had a person call me today about another subject, and they said, I said, oh, have you gotten All Points yet? Because they're in the Castleton area. And that person said, no, but they came by and talked to me about it, and I just told them I wasn't ready yet. And I went, whoa, if you want to get this deal, go ahead and sign up with them if you really want fiber to your house, because I don't know how long this is going to last after the VATI program ends. Will they come back? I'm sure they'd come back, but free on your long driveway and all these other perks that you get right now, no. And he was like, oh, I'll call them. I said, okay. So highly recommend if anybody thinks they're going to go with All Points that they make sure they're registered.
I did have a question about that. I did not know about the Hill House event until I saw it on Facebook also. And I had a...
we were all glaring at your area.
I had somebody in my district that stopped by that and priced getting an installation on their property, and their driveway is probably about a mile, but what they were told was the last mile isn't actually a mile. It's only so many yards, and then they pay after that point. They may have misunderstood the conversation, but they were quoted $3,000 or something like that to take the wire.
Our understanding is $0 for installation right now.
Install.
But is there I mean,
Regardless of how long your driveway is.
If I have a 5 mile driveway, they're going all the way up it or whatever.
If it's a VATI address, they are, and that's part of the grant, yeah.
Okay.
Well, but we can check whether it's a VATI address and then, you know, put those people in touch with me and we'll make sure we shake it out.
Okay, I might follow up then with you and
Absolutely.
try to get the details of that.
Yeah, that's why I don't want people to wait if they're interested.
And when, with the bead auction, there were some very remote places that none of the ISPs wanted to bid on because they were very remote, and there's 10 or 20 satellite winners in bead. And so that's a scenario like that, so.
Any other thoughts or questions? Still trying to get, information on locations and stuff ahead of time, but it seems like it's a challenge for Tom sometimes too. All right, EMS billing medical assistance agreement.
This is really just an update. At your last meeting, we shared that we pulled together an agreement to help out our volunteer fire and rescue companies at their request. This works out some billing complexities when Rappahannock County employees are providing EMS services on volunteer ambulances. Sometimes there's some billing issues, particularly with Washington and Amosville, who are not within our billing ecosystem. We heard leading up to the last meeting that some of the volunteer companies didn't have a chance to review it, didn't know what this meant. And Darren reached out to everybody and shared it with them. We've not heard from anybody. I've not heard from anybody. Darren's not heard from anybody. This is something they want. I would leave it on the side burner until they all come in and tell you that they want this done.
There was one item at the chief's meeting just had to do with the policy reference, so county policy versus association policy for driving. That was the only issue, but I know it was going to the association for further discussion.
Yep. So I would recommend you just, we'll defer this to next month, and if we get more information by then, maybe it'll be ready for you to adopt. If we do hear from the association of something that staff thinks is appropriate change, and it would change the recommendation for the agreement, we'll update that for you and have that for you next month.
Is everybody comfortable with what this is? Okay. Just want to make sure I had a conversation with Darren, that if there was any doubt about, this isn't something we're pushing, this is something that was asked for. I wanted to make sure that that was clear.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
At the Public Safety Committee meeting, our last one, Darren, I believe it was Washington, they brought this agreement. Of course, that was in the presence of the chiefs or their representatives, so there was awareness of this, and I guess Was this mentioned at the last chief's meeting? You say there was some other policy that was mentioned, but was this brought up then?
I was at the last chiefs meeting, I just advised, when it was put off the agenda last month, I sent an email out to all the chiefs, saying
Yeah, I
it's been
remember.
pulled off, everyone wants an opportunity to review it. So I just said the same thing, I reiterated that at the chiefs meeting for people that didn't respond to my email. The only discussion we had, Chief Carter had mentioned that one of the issues with the document was reference to a policy. The association and the county have identical policies on different mastheads. And it was just reference to county policy. That was the only issue, but they did say it was going to the association meeting for further discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Page Sperryville, 138 kV transmission. Mr. Settle, I believe.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this short. Obviously, we had our presentation at our last meeting from First Energy and REC. Jeff, I see you're here. Thank you for your input at the last meeting, very valuable. With regards to First Energy, we saw the room was full, and it was a cross-section of folks, not only from my district, but from other districts as well. And a lot of good questions asked, and I believe we did task the staff to capture those questions. And thank you for that website that you built. And I was on there a couple of times, and it kind of recaptures from the beginning to the end. So good stuff there. Back in January, when they had the public meeting in Sperryville, Gary, I know you were there. I saw you there, but you actually authored a letter about and pushed some questions with regards to misinformation. I think that flyer was going around, and to try to settle some of that. I felt that letter was very effective. So fast forward to the presentation in July, the questions that were asked, a lot of them were overlapped, similar questions, just asked in a different form or fashion. What I'd like to see the board or recommend that we consider is capturing those questions and pushing them to First Energy for the record. And, we all want reliable energy, no question about that. This is not about not focused on that, but we want to make sure that those questions are on the record. Otherwise, they'll be deposited in some other place. So I would like for that, of course, Mr. Whitson is not here, but I'm hoping that, it would be unanimous. If not, then I don't know it would have the effect. I think hopefully all of us are on board with that, with the scenic view and some of the unanswered questions, the environmental impacts and so forth, again, based on the questions that were asked. The second piece to this is a resolution. I'm not a big resolution guy. I think sometimes it's a feel-good document, and that's okay too. But in this case here, a resolution not addressing any particular landowner or issues they might be having or wants or needs. But I thought, and it occurred to me after the last board meeting, and specifically, Madam Chair, you and our colleague Keir Whitson, who actually addressed this through the comp plan, and things that are important to us as Rappahannock County. And I would like to entertain, at least have some discussion about a possible resolution that addresses what's important to Rappahannock County and at a high level. The questions can speak for themselves in another document, but what's important to us is Rappahannock County.
So you'd be just basically asking the county office, to come up with a resolution that we would vote on at the next meeting?
Yes, if this board is so inclined to entertain a resolution, that would be the ask. I know there was a resolution pushed, I believe, from, I think Mr. Carey was copied on that a few weeks ago, maybe prior to our last board meeting, a presentation from the Sperryville Alliance, if you will. I believe Mr. Sutton authored that, or was the sender of that document. Now, that document goes into a lot of detail that I don't think it's probably very important in discussion or an SEC filing or the hearings or what have you. But from a protection of what's important to us as a county body is where I'm coming from, and maybe that's a go-by or a start to bring back something in September for us to look at.
I'm not sure I could adequately capture the thoughts of the board, and maybe if Mr. Settle was willing and the board was willing, you know, he could help us shape this and have some back and forth before it goes to the board at the meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
It seems to me that, I appreciate the work and thought you put into this, Gary. It seems to me that the list of questions is really important. You know, we were promised, well, we're told that we would have answers to several questions at the last meeting, and just that simple follow-up and encapsulating all of those questions into one spot, I think will may do as much or more good as a resolution in the long run.
And Mr. Deno's, I think you're on point. I mean, the questions and more specificity will be in the letter than a resolution. You know, again, it's, however, I throw the resolution out there, kind of is icing on the cake, if you will, from this body. But to your point, that letter is most important. I'd rather see that on the record than a resolution that is general. Most of them are.
And I think most of the questions, reflecting that most of the questions were met with some were answered very abruptly. Many were met with, you know, that'll be in the SEC filing. And I don't know how to go about that. We can ask anything we want, and we might just hear that back. All will be told in the SEC filing. But now is our chance to shape that filing to the greatest extent we have with the megaphone that we have. And I think the community's done a pretty good job of being heard. And Mr. Tompkins shared his relative perspective of our community's input and Page County's input. So we're being heard. That's good. And whether it shapes the project, we may never know how much it shapes the project. But the fact that they've delayed the SEC filing multiple times may be an indicator that they continue to tweak and shape things because of what they're hearing. And they don't want to have might not want to have all that boil up at the SEC level if they can resolve some things now. So happy to help any way I can.
I had a couple of constituents reach out to me and ask if I thought that the board would consider a resolution. So I think actually the questions, they could serve as a really good guide as how to word a resolution. So I'd be happy to work with you, Mr. Settle, to come up with a jumping off point, because then we would have both the documented questions, the letter, and then the resolution. We all know that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and if it doesn't, at the very least, it's going to get the attention. So we can at least try and create as much noise for First Energy as we can through a layered approach. So.
And it is possible that we could get Page County to join in on it if you're interested. Cover it from both sides of the mountain.
That's a good point.
While we're talking about energy, I don't know if the board is, I have all of a sudden gotten very interested in data centers and power, not data centers coming to Rappahannock County, but the impact of data centers to this state, our country as well, but I'm more interested in Virginia. And in the news the other day from the Richmond Times-Dispatch, it was grid operator warns of 6,800 megawatt shortfall as data center growth outpaces new power. There was also a News 12, I think, video that I shared on my Facebook page today, basically reiterating the fact that the data centers are more of a problem with power for citizens than I think any of us really thought of in the beginning. So I'm hoping that the regional commission will help design something for this year's General Assembly and try to get someone to, it sounds like it's bipartisan in my mind. So to me, if we can figure out a way to take care of the citizens' power to their home as first priority over data centers with AI going crazy, somehow we've got to take care of our citizens. I'm really getting more and more concerned about that. So I just figured that was good to add into an energy conversation. And if you all have interest in writing something up that I could take to the regional commission, I'd be happy to do that as well. I know this is going to come up, and I'd like to get, pretty much every county in the state to agree to a resolution of some sort, but it is starting to make me nervous, and I have solar panels, so. Mr. Settle, sorry, are you good on where we are with this?
Yeah, just to recap, make sure I'd be more glad to work to try to craft a resolution. Thank you, Ms. Comer, for offering help. And I heard Mr. Janot as well, is a resolution necessary, but maybe that letter of questions. Again, I think this has to be unanimous, or then it's, I'd hate for us to do the work in the resolution. And we still have a huge impact with the letter that's going to be sent out. And then it's, well, maybe not a good idea because these folks are really busy.
I'm supportive of a resolution. I just didn't want to do something general and not get the specific questions. That's what I was trying to get at.
So a combination.
Yep, thank you.
The letter, is that something that will happen in between now and the next meeting, or a letter that's presented at the next meeting for consideration by the full board?
I see the letter as something we can move on, much like you did back in January. You just sent us an email, said, hey, I wrote a letter to First Energy, here's a bunch of questions.
Okay.
That came out of the presentation. I don't know that,
Okay.
I mean, it probably would be a good idea, maybe to share it informally.
Yeah, well, I don't, from a FOIA perspective, I don't like to do that. But what I would then say is that each of you have key questions in your mind or that you've heard from your constituents. Make sure I'm aware of them. And I will compile that, and then we'll get them out.
If I understand correctly, we have a meeting on the 19th.
I was going to, the joint meeting with Planning Commission, so you could potentially, we could put it on that agenda, and suggested that, my note was that you continue this meeting to then, so rather than adjourn today.
Right? Restricted tourism revenue investment strategy. This is just something that, based on the dollar figures that could go into our tourism account based on our sales tax, food and lodging. I just wanted transparency and clarity for all to understand what the money, where the money's going, and if there's some documentation that needs to happen for applications to grants or whatever. I just really want to get ahead of it before we have right now, we're looking at potential of $177,000, if I'm looking at that correctly. I just think that's a lot of money, and we need to make sure we're using it appropriately.
When your current budget allocates a good portion of that to things like the visitor center, Sperry Fest, et cetera, and all of that deserves to be in the conversation of the highest and best use for the restricted dollars. Those decisions were made during the budget process last year, so you considered the public's input for those highest and best use of those dollars, but that leaves $79,591, assuming we can predict tax revenue to the dollar, unallocated right now. And so what is the highest best use for those in a tourism restricted perspective? And, is that staffing, is that advertising, is it, what is it? And that's where, at some point in time, the board will have to come consensus on how to invest those dollars in the tourism space. And we would love to hear what your thoughts are on that someday.
In my mind, I know Ms. Jewell puts a lot of time into tourism right now. And she's probably got a list of to-dos longer than any of us. So if we can do something, even if it's just a part-time person that can take some of that off her shoulders, I think it would be money well spent. But I would like, I mean, you know this area better than probably any of us put together. So if you want to talk to it and what you think we would benefit from with these dollars, I would love to have you share that.
I do think it would be worthwhile to have somebody who can have dedicated time for tourism. I devote time here and there to tourism, and I have to say a lot of times it's reactive versus proactive. I'll hear about a grant, in short order, and I'll need to spin some wheels to get that done. And sometimes we get the grant, sometimes we don't get the grant. And then there's the follow-up and the data collection. I mean, with the advertising that's happening right now, there's so much data available. It would be really interesting to be able to get my hands around that, but I'm not able to dedicate time to doing that. And I think that would be useful, not only for whoever is in the tourism role, but also to be able to share that with the tourism partners in the community, the board, and the broader community. So yes, I do think that it would be good to be able to have a dedicated somebody, whether that person is a part-time employee or a contracted service. I do think that would be useful.
Well, I was going to ask could we explore the cost difference between a contracted person service versus, adding a position part-time. Something else, I wonder if it would at all be worthy to, kind of like the radio position. Would one of our smaller neighbors be interested in sharing?
Well, I mean, some things lend themselves to cooperation. Other things are more difficult, like come to my county.
Yeah, well, but
if you can come to our county.
Often like VTC does a park it here and then day trip it, because we can say come to our county, but there are very few places to stay. But if they stayed in a neighbor place, there are lots of places to visit. Anyway, I think I know that your time is valuable, and there are bigger fish, but certainly the little fish are important to the ecosystem.
Agreed, yes, yes.
Yes, we want to bring in the school of fish to Rappahannock.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very good point that this may be outsourced, more easily outsourced to an organization that specializes in this instead of hiring. I think it's a very good point.
I think if you all agree with me, I would like to ask Bonnie to research this information and come back to us with a recommendation. And if you need us to help in any way, please ask.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. While we're on that topic, though, I think it would probably, if not next month, maybe October, would maybe be a good time to hear from Advanced Travel and Tourism, so that they can share what they've been doing, and maybe they can give a high-level report out on some, because I have seen that dashboard, and it's
incredible. It's an incredible amount of data, and it's just like, wow.
And it's all very interesting.
We were down here where no advertising, and then you can see immediately when the advertising went live how many clicks on the explorerappahannock.com website there were. It's just amazing.
Yep.
And that's just one data point that you can see what's happening.
And I had no idea that these companies can actually track your cell phone.
Yes.
So they know when you're in Rappahannock County. So it's not just the click to the website, it's the click to the website that led you to drive to Rappahannock County. So
Yes.
I'm definitely interested in that
I
data.
can always tell who's, when I'm in someone's target group, target demographic, like when I cross county lines or get someplace and all of a sudden those ads start popping up on your phone or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, well, middle-aged woman is I'm the target group for whoever.
Anything else you all would like to see?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Rolling right along into, wow, we're at board committee reports. That's a good sign. Recreational Facilities Authority, that was pretty much, I think I talked enough earlier today. I'm really thankful for everybody that came out of the woodwork saying they were interested in helping with the park. Public Safety Committee, Gary?
We haven't met, I think we reported on our last meeting, in the last July meeting, so, do we know when the next meeting is, Gary? I know we talked about meeting with the chiefs, maybe every other meeting. And
Yeah, I know you, at the last meeting, you suggested we need to get that cadence going with the chiefs. I haven't heard from the chair. Guess we need to sort that out.
What do you need me to do, or is that, I mean, typically, I know you've communicated with those folks.
I'll just find out when the next chiefs meeting is.
Yeah,
And
that's a pretty routine
they're,
cadence.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send their schedule to the PSC leadership.
If I could, while you're talking about that, the one, been reading the letters to the editor lately, because I know I talked about one in July. One was mentioned today during public comment that I did read, and one of the nuggets out of that letter that I walked away with was, and I tried to pull it up so that I could read it word for word, and I couldn't find it, but the very last paragraph of that particular letter speaks it's specifically to strategic planning and the lack thereof, maybe. I really think that I should be something talked about at the Public Safety Committee and explored a little bit more, and because it's.
Yeah, that's referenced in the services agreement. I believe the wording is that the association in partnership with, the PSC maybe will prepare that, but it was done last in 2020, 2021, I believe.
That's what
So
the letter
5 years.
referenced,
So
2021.
Harold Bebout was a driving force behind the development of the last one. And, I feel like county staff, board, volunteer organizations could do a much better job of coordinating visions. For whatever reason, is not easy.
Oh, I believe you. I just definitely want it. I want it, first, the writer of that letter to know that I zeroed in on that and that I share that concern. I do think it's important. And then I just wanted my colleagues to know it's important. So.
Yeah, the one thing I'm very sensitive to is I don't think the Board of Supervisors or county staff should be authoring a strategic plan for the system. It should be a fully collaborative effort, and I don't think that the volunteer companies should author a strategic plan without, that coordination. And so we really have to do it together. And so figuring out the framework to do that and move it forward, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Good.
If I could just follow up on that, I agree with Supervisor Comer. And we talked about this just in my short tenure about consistency and maybe bringing the companies together in a way through the Public Safety Committee, which was part of the conversation of having meeting with them every other month instead of 2 or 3 times a year, and sometimes that gets canceled from what I could tell in past meetings, researching that. And, we got some extraordinary folks, volunteers with experience that work in their day jobs that are governed by strategic plans. And the Public Safety Committee meeting, although, I've been to just a few, in my mind, that's a high level. It's good to talk about wrong-way signs or rumble strips and things like that because it's important to a community, their quality of life issues. But I believe that committee should be primarily focused on high-level priorities. Where are we going to be in 5 years? We've already found ourselves in this debate over Chester Gap and Flint Hill, that keeps manifesting itself. I'd like to see that go away. What is the next hurdle that we are going to face? And, what's important at Chiefs meet, I would ask them, what are your top 2, 3 priorities? You'll probably some overlap there. But if you don't ask and put them in the same room and you ask different people and you just do it in silos, you're going to get hundreds of different types of answers.
Yeah.
And then I think, I agree with Mr. Curry, it shouldn't be us writing the strategic plan. It should be us help facilitating it and providing guidance and support. And not totally, because we have to have input. They may come up with something that we just can't support. Is it a time where funding is now done through budgeting and less versus bring us your bills and we'll look at it twice a year? And they do a magnificent job. The chiefs are very frugal. I believe that in my mind. But it would address Mr. Glennie's point is, what about Company 5, who works their butt off over there, but they have limited resources? Yep. In a strategic plan and or discussion, those chiefs and the cadre of folks, the experts could start to synthesize that and say, what do we want to look like? What do we have to look like in 5 years or 10 years or 2 years? That's nowhere to be found other than if you're sitting in a particular meeting and you ask somebody, well, I think this. You ask somebody else, well, I agree with that, but that's really not, everybody wants to kind of go back to their world or their company. Yep. And I think that's natural. I think we all go back to where we feel most comfortable because they all, performance-wise, in my experience, do a magnificent job. But these are things we have to talk about, and I believe we're missing valuable opportunity. I know it's tough sometimes sitting in those meetings, and we all come out frustrated sometimes. You wish we could get to the next point or maybe see some light in that room and go to it and get a topic or two that we could agree on and work on it hard and try to provide some and check off those goals, have a strategy to get there over time. But I think if we continue to be, it's challenging, but we just got to keep pushing forward. I believe that Public Safety Committee could be a tool, and then maybe it is meet twice a year. Once it gets going, empower those folks to make their own decisions because they're smart folks. But
yeah, no, I think public safety's got the right people in the room having a conversation that doesn't seem to, it really doesn't seem to aggravate the people in the room. They understand that, we're all in it together and they're having a really good conversation from what I saw over the past 7 months. So I would wholeheartedly agree that public safety and chiefs meeting together, maybe that meeting you can recommend this whole strategic plan and find out, what resources they need to make them successful.
And that's not entirely different than the work we tried to do with the clearing and really struggled to get any purchase. We had some buy-off in the room, but not a lot of, and so maybe it's that strategizing how we follow through when we're not in those. Because those some good facilitated conversations.
What meeting was that here?
We went through a process with a hired consultant called The Clearing, and those reports are available. But it identified, some areas that we could work on. And, I think my recollection is somewhat, what are the things that maybe aren't working so well right now? And we highlighted some of those things. And then, what do you want to do about them? And oh, by the way, if we don't do anything, you say you want to do those things you don't like so well. So you can't just assume that they're gonna change if we don't, if we identify them, that there are things we wanna work on, then the next step is like, what are we gonna do about it? Collectively. And so some of that is out there, and we can use that as a jumping off point with those discussions.
That's an excellent point. I think it's hard work. And sometimes to affect change, you're not going to do it over months or even a year or 2 years, but you, down the road, several years, and look back and say, you know what, back when we had 10 goals and we got 5 of them, that's a start. That's 50%. That's not an acceptable success rate, not in my mind, my world I came from, but at least it's success. I went back and read the 2014 study again, and the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how do we defend that? And I'll leave it at this, because this is a huge conversation, and the public safety community is just one piece. We've got to get buy-in from the association, and I think there's buy-in somewhere in that arena, and start hitting on a few cylinders. I lost my train of thought, but getting everybody in the same room and trying to make some progress. But
There were key takeaways from that day with the clearing. I mean, it was a full day. I think we all met together, but the county had their tasks that came out of that, and then there were tasks for the association and the companies, and that's kind of where it stopped. So it might be perfect to let Mr.
I
Settle.
put it on every public safety committee agenda at the end, but by the time we get there, I think we're
Worn out.
worn out.
Yep. It's good information.
the point I wanted to make, I think we have tools in our toolbox, leverage from this board. It doesn't affect monetarily or it might change how we do business. It may help drive some compliance and whatever that might be. As subtle as it probably would be too. It's just we're human nature, creatures of habit.
All right. Let's see, Planning Commission.
We didn't meet in July, so we'll be meeting all together, I guess, in August. Yep.
Fire Levy Board is getting ready to meet.
Well, the last 6 months is closed. This is usually the less time-sensitive one of the two because we're not jammed up against the budget. So those groups will be pulling their bills together, and we'll schedule a meeting sometime in the next couple months.
And the audit process, I think I heard that's going well.
It is going well. The auditor actually has a meeting with Springfield Fire next week. And has drafts of all the reports at this point. So the auditor is going through with the various departments and answering questions and doing some follow-ups.
Awesome.
But it's going well.
RSW.
We met and basically decided to defer discussion on the true-up process to the next meeting because Warren County was not in a position to take action.
Virginia Career Works.
So we don't meet again until September, but I did see a report which, for some reason, it was mailed to my house. So I will give it to, I'll make sure you all see it. It was the return on investment. We give Virginia Career Works, I think it's $1,700, maybe $2,000. But I think somewhere, I think it was maybe 5 Rappahannock County citizens had taken advantage of some services offered by Virginia Career Works, and then they had the analysis of the return on investment. It was really quite impressive. So I'll make sure that you all, my colleagues, see that. So.
Thank you. Going into treasurer's reports. Everybody good, or do we need a quick break?
Say keep on going.
Okay. Cash flow, please.
Looks like if you look at the end of the 26th line, it was fair amount below the 25 line, and Bonnie told us she's pulling a bunch of grants, and so now it's closer. So we got a bunch of that grant money in.
We got grant money in and the schools got grant money in, so I think that made the difference this time.
All right.
And if you're looking at those reports later on your own, I'll just caution you that the revenue, most of the revenue that we received in July and again in August will be for either calendar year 26 taxes that were due back in December. I guess that was calendar year 25 taxes due back in December. Or they match fiscal 26 expenditures, and so they'll be accrued back to fiscal 26. So you'll see very little revenue when you look at the revenue for July, and then again for August.
Let's see, revenues, no, sorry. Monthly sales tax. That one just always blows me away. This is where I hope we can put a penny to work.
See over here, we're at $100,000.
Yeah, it just keeps going
It's
up.
the largest July you've had.
People are shopping from their home and having deliveries, I think.
And inflation.
Yeah.
The basis is going up.
That's true. Meals and lodging, please.
So it's important to note here that even though that gray represents first quarter fiscal 27, that's only 1 month. So we'll get additional revenue in not as much, but additional revenue in August and additional revenue in September. That will ultimately factor into this for comparative purposes.
Previous year, 160 versus now 142.
Correct. So there's more to come. And the intermediaries, they submit their reports monthly as opposed to quarterly.
Okay.
It's the Airbnbs of the world, the VRBO.
Those are the key ones that I like to look at. Anything else you guys would like to see? Okay. Review of legal matters, anything changing?
No changes.
Mr. Goff, any communications?
No, ma'am. Well, informal stuff, but not anything out of the ordinary.
Construction and renovation projects.
Scramble's school has been getting a lot of attention recently. Fair amount of work going on down there. That's active.
And the campus network infrastructure, is that
That's
pretty much
in
done?
many ways done. There's some cleanup left from removing old stuff, and we're moving into this year. We're having them help us with our endpoint management, making sure all the computers around have proper patching, antivirus, that even can come with some training and intrusion education.
Good security, you're comfortable with the way that's, you've hired a good company and they're doing their job?
we-
Okay.
I'm very comfortable with our stance now compared to before.
Good.
We have the, I don't think I wrote it in here, the financial servers being upgraded as well here shortly.
The EMS Sheriff's Garage, number 6, is that one just on hold until the courthouse
Well-
design is made, or?
There's only so many plates they can spin. However, that one is one that I do have some concern over. Is that really what we want to do? And do we want to invest in structure here? Should it go somewhere else? Should it be at one of the volunteer fire and rescue companies? Should they decide to partner? And that's just better housing for our quick response vehicle, which is in a tent right now. it could, maybe the fact that the courthouse is gonna move forward over there and displace maintenance, that could argue for us to just drive forward regardless, because it could be used for maintenance or for EMS. That is one we need to come to conclusion. Higher on my priority is the historical envelope project, so you should see activity on that before you probably see activity on this standalone building.
Didn't we supplement appropriations for that building?
Yes, as part of the fiscal 27 adopted budget, yes.
We got monthly report, RCWSA, they had some bad weather and damage to vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah, had a lot of trees down, damaged a couple vehicles. Of course, insurance will bear out what it does. We'll help them the best we can.
But the system itself is fine.
It is. I reached out to Mr. Trafton after a couple of days after the storm, and especially after seeing the pictures of the trees. Just missed some of the new infrastructure and crushed 2 of their cars. And I'd reached out to Gary to see if we maybe had some spare car. I even mentioned it to Dr. Grimsley until the insurance adjusters, and we all know that takes a little time. I mean, they're servicing our sewers to schools, and they have. So we'll see how it works out. But I wanted to reassure them that we just didn't forget about it.
Get them in an old sheriff cruiser or something.
There you go. That'll work. It's 4 wheels and.
All right, so we're into matters presented by the board. I'm going to start down with Mr. Settle.
I think we probably, I had a couple wrote down. I think we've hit on them. Yep. I'm good. Well, the only thing I wanted to ask was about the data centers. The ordinance, I believe, was the last meeting or the meeting before.
Yes, I asked Mr. Goff to try to get his arms around the topic and discuss it with his peers. I think he's in the middle of that effort.
Yes, as you can imagine, there's a lot of chatter about it on the LGA listserv. So I did find out through Mr. Curry that there was a ordinance similar to one we were considering in Frederick County. And I have a call into their county attorney. I'd like to pick his brains about it. I looked at the statute that Mr. Connick is referring to as being a declaration of the public policy of the Commonwealth that he's claiming requires us to have this use in our code, and I just have to respectfully disagree. That's about a regional sharing of tax revenue, and it's not about, it doesn't, and there's plenty of other instances in the code where they do declare the public policy of the Commonwealth. They're perfectly capable of doing that in an outright manner that would say that we had to include it as part of our zoning code, but they don't. So the fact that it's not there, the case law is that you're not supposed to assume that it is. So I just would respectfully disagree, but I plan to issue a detailed memorandum to Mr. Curry on that, and I hope to achieve that before the next board meeting. I hope to, I said.
Well, and don't, like, we have this joint planning commission and board meeting.
August 19th.
Yeah, in the middle of this month, and I think we should absolutely have this topic on that agenda, because I think people will have lots to share and questions to ask, and yeah.
I just don't want to overwhelm the agenda. We do have some things that the joint bodies probably want to work out on state law that was adopted that we need to react to, as opposed to, thoughts about what might apply, maybe.
Well,
So,
all I want is it, because I do know that it's a sensitive topic, I don't want us to get into the habit of talking about it without it being formally on the agenda. That's all, so.
Ask you a question about that. Was there a bill in Richmond that required, I believe there was a bill that required data centers to be only located on areas zoned in industrial? Is that?
Well, there were a lot of bills that tried to get at the power use and it just made thousands of bills get introduced and many have zero traction. So I wouldn't get lost in what was introduced, although we do keep track of ones that are definitely narrow with kind of changing throughout the session or hotly debated in committee and maybe narrowly suffering defeat. Those are some we definitely pay attention to. PEC is always front and center on that. But we don't want to chase things that just are not going anywhere.
Yeah, I was referring, I think it's House Bill 153 that talked about zoning with, I've read through it and don't think I fully understand what it's talking about, but I'm sure that our friends at PEC are constantly looking into these things and understanding what's coming down the line. So.
I do know there's several counties, probably at least 10, that are looking at what they currently have, looking at do they need something, looking at should they just remove it completely. I mean, there's a lot going on in the state right now.
There's others that have data centers lined up and are campaigning hard against do not put a moratorium, do not do anything. So it's all sides of the topic, and so we need to be looking at it holistically. And in a lot of cases we'd say, hey, if another county wants to have a use, let them go ahead. But in this case, as it was pointed out during public comment, the power's got to come from somewhere. And unless it's on site, which may be objectionable, may not be, it's got to get there. So there's going to be transmission lines involved. And so where's it going to go to from and who's it going to upset? And, it's very, very complicated, which means it is a state issue. And I think sooner or later, the General Assembly and the governor are going to get on the same page. And but for now, I feel very comfortable with our current stance relative to our law and our commercial attractiveness. This doesn't bother me at all at night. I understand that it's a fearful term, but this is not one that I'm concerned about.
All right, John?
Yeah, I did have one thing I wanted to bring up. I just wanted to mention very briefly a few conversations I've had about the library move. I've had more people contact me about this than I think anything else in the last 6 months. And I'll start by saying I implicitly fully trust the library board to make the decision. I don't think it's not our decision, it's their decision, and respect their ability to make that decision. I think they'll make a good decision. But I do think that we have to say that we've mapped out the CIP for the next several years. We've budgeted basically to take on debt for the first time in a long time with the capital improvements that we have planned. And I don't think in any of that we planned a significant increase in library operation funds. So my concern is that bigger spaces usually require more money to keep them going. And I just want to make sure that that's considered as the library board makes their decision. That we're not necessarily thinking that, hey, we have a bunch of extra cash around to put into operations. And so while I trust them to make that decision, I just want to be clear that that's not something we've talked about, an increase in any kind of funds. And I'm sure that they're already talking about that and have a plan worked out. But I just want to say that publicly.
Good point. Ms. Comer?
I don't have much, other than I've been curious about the speed cameras over by the school. And I believe I had a exchange with the sheriff. I inquired about it, and they stopped quite a few speeders through that section of 211 when those lights are flashing. So I think she has I can't remember the time period, but a significant amount of money and a significant amount of tickets. So it will be interesting to me to see if human behavior is impacted and if the number of tickets come down. Because the lights are flashing. I've driven through there several times, so.
I would think that it would only affect the locals, but these are getting to be so pervasive across the state and elsewhere that the broader community is beginning to understand that these speed cameras are out there. And not to mention the Google Maps of the world are identifying them. And so I think it will have a broader impact.
There's a ton of rental cars coming through,
Yeah.
a ton of them.
Yeah, you're right.
Interesting.
It's a high tourist area.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
The only thing I have is I just want to thank Emergency Services Coordinator Darren Stevens, Stephanie Clark, Chief Nick, and our EMS Captain at Company 4, Susan Fitzgerald, for a month of successful, I think, transition to paid and supporting the paid. We've got drivers, I think there's 21 shifts that we have to cover each month. And I think July was a tough one because they were just building up the advanced people that were going to be running out of Company 4. But I think we're close to being at where we need to be. And so Mr. Stevens and Ms. It is Clark, right, Stephanie? Won't have to work the hours. They've been working to make sure that everything was working fine at the company.
We're steadily onboarding new providers.
They've been working really hard. If you get a chance, thank them for their extra effort. All right.
I have one last thing, real
Yes, sir.
quickly. Question for Gary. I know we had talked about the radios that the chiefs speak about in most of their meetings. I saw on your list of activities where you had met with L3 Harris about maybe aging infrastructure.
Yes.
Legacy infrastructure here. Were those radios discussed, or where were we at?
Yeah, I did talk with our technician that time, and where we stand on that is I've asked Darren to get with the radio tech, I don't know what their term, the manager in Culpeper, and seek support from both Fauquier and Culpeper. And if we can't drive that forward, then we're just going to pay Harris money to do it directly. Which is so we need to update the firmware in all these L3 Harris radios. And so when you do that, you have to go to each radio. So when you go to each radio, then I want to do everything I want to do when I go to each radio, which is update the programming. So then everybody comes out of the woodwork and says, we want to change the programming this way, that way, add Madison, fix this Warren County thing, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we want to do everything in this one touch. And so sooner or later, you just say, time out, we're going to touch them, and if you come back, we'll do other stuff later. So that's where we've been, is trying to corral that. And then a benefit from the good graces of our community partners in Fauquier to help us do this programming, because we don't have the expertise in-house. So they're busy themselves, and so we're going to lean on Culpeper next and try to get them to, who've already done the same firmware update. So we'll see how that goes, and if that doesn't work, then we'll go with Harris.
What kind of cost are we looking at?
Well, Harris will touch all the radios for free, but the programming part is different. I convinced him to do the actual programming and PM for free, so we just got to get to that point.
Just seems like it's been on the table for a long time.
Yes, it has.
It's a real scab that's picked every public safety committee meeting and every other meeting, chief's meeting. Having dealt with radio transition, and you're exactly right, it's tough to get rid of a lot of things when they get there, but gotta get the radios fixed.
All right. If I could get someone to get us into the closed meeting, that would be great.
Someone want to just read this?
Yep, that'd be perfect.
I've got to redeem myself here. I move that the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors conduct a closed meeting in accordance with 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. 2.2-3711.A1. The associated subject matter of the closed meeting will be County Administrator's Annual Performance Review pursuant to Section 15 of his employment record.
And it's a roll call vote. Mr. Settle?
Aye.
Mr. Geno?
Aye.
Ms. Comer? Aye. And I also, and again, Supervisor Whitson is absent.
Who seconded that?
Oh, goodness, I don't think we did motion in
I
second.
second it.
Thank you. Are we safe on the vote, Mr. Curry, or do we need to roll again?
I'm fine with it. I mean,
Okay. Anybody want to change their vote? Okay, all right, we're closed session.